Hundreds of demonstrators outside, hundreds of supporters inside as a controversial conservative speaker swings through Salt Lake City.
And things got heated as the former Breitbart editor Ben Shapiro took the stage at the University of Utah and ended with some people in handcuffs. We have live team coverage tonight. Andrew Adams was inside listening to what Shapiro had to say, but we begin with Lad Egan, who was out with the crowd of protesters when police started making arrests. Lad?
Yeah, Deanie, it was a noisy night of protesting, and I just got an update. Police, they say there were a total of 5 people detained. 2 of those resulted in arrests. In fact, police tell me that one of the protesters used a taser on someone else in the crowd, and our cameras caught the tense moments.
An evening of mostly peaceful protests.
I stood there and you slammed into me.
I watched you. Shattered by this scuffle.
Did she tase you? Yeah, in my neck.
That ended with police taking multiple people into custody.
Head down.
The police action followed hours of back and forth between supporters and protesters of Ben Shapiro.
Just give me one example.
Our people.
One example of Ben Shapiro and hate speech.
I haven't seen tensions this high, ever. I haven't seen this much fear, and I don't know if I've seen this many tears.
Move the march! Move the march!
Some argue that Shapiro shouldn't have been allowed to speak on campus.
I think that the university has an obligation to protect its students from hate speech.
We have every single right to come and protest them, and that's what we're here for.
Others said disagreeing with Shapiro is not about shutting down free speech.
We're here to talk about racial bias in policing. We're not here to change the narrative about free speech.
Yeah, and the University of Utah tonight feeling very good about how everything was handled, saying, quote, "This is what free speech looks like." Deanie, though, they say trying to prepare for this and get all the security in place, they say this was an unprecedented event for their university.
Well, they managed it well considering how other things have played out on other university campuses. Lad, thanks.
So that was the story outside. Now let's go inside, where hundreds of supporters filled the seats. We continue our team coverage with Andrew Adams on what Shapiro had to say tonight. Andrew?
Well, Dave, it was very interesting to note that as I was sitting inside the auditorium, I heard protesters outside chanting, "USA, USA." It's interesting because people inside were also at a different time chanting, "USA, USA." A lot of patriotism on display, just very different views of it. Ear-popping cheers welcomed him, and in return, conservative commentator Ben Shapiro gave back an earful.
It's this notion that America was created specifically for the benefit of rich white males to preserve their power. Absolute, utter hogwash.
From race to rape.
As I always say, rapists should be castrated, imprisoned for life, or killed.
The man who drew a firestorm outside this University of Utah auditorium spit fire inside.
You know what's a really easy way not to end up in jail? Do not commit a crime.
Despite the hot takes, Shapiro maintained his politics had been largely misrepresented by his critics.
The idea that I am responsible for violence against LGBTQ people is delusional.
He encouraged the audience to see others as individuals, not as persecuted groups.
Of course, American history is replete with racism and sexism and bigotry and homophobia. That's not the same thing as saying that you get to affect injustice today in order to correct injustices in the past.
It's perspective he acknowledges will continue to inflame his opposition.
You are not a victim. They are not victims.
Among those who heard Shapiro's words, even some who disagreed seemed to find common ground.
Marriage, something worthwhile.
Well, that security was so tight, I would almost liken it to a presidential campaign event. It was that tight, but ultimately, really nothing happened inside. The event went as planned, and everybody left fairly satisfied, from my view. Back to you.
Andrew Adams live for us tonight up at the U. Thank you, Andrew.